Welcome to the Deep Dive. We help you get a handle on complex topics quickly.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're digging into early modern cross-cultural encounters using materials from the Global History Podcast.
hmm
And this is really, valuable stuff, especially if you're prepping for the UPSC, trying to link history with what's happening globally now.
Exactly. It's a key period for understanding how our modern interconnected world kind of started to form. And those historical trends, very relevant for the syllabus.
Okay, so the podcast series covers quite a range, like Charles Walker looking at an Andean witness during the Age of Revolutions. What's sort of surprising about that angle?
Well, what's really striking is how Walker shows the Age of Revolutions wasn't just, sent out from Europe. It was actively shaped, sometimes completely remade, in places like the Andes.
Remade how?
Indigenous communities, for instance, they weren't just passive.
Yeah.
They often grabbed onto that revolutionary talk for their own goals.
Ah,
Yeah, goals that sometimes the European revolutionaries hadn't even thought about. It really challenges that old idea of influence just flowing one way.
that does change things. Then you've got Sujit Sivasundaram looking at the same era, but across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. How does that expand the view?
The Sivasundaram's work, it just shows incredible connections. These revolutions weren't happening in bubbles.
Right.
They sent ripples, huge distances. Think about News of the French revelations.
Hmm.
Even if it got garbled, it could still shake up local power struggles, maybe spark resistance in Southeast Asia or the Pacific.
So it really was a global age of revolutions.
Absolutely. Driven by shared ideas, yes, but also responses to colonial pressures right across the board.
Okay. And David Vevers, he looks at the English East India Company in Asia. We hear a lot about trade, but what about the cultural side of things?
Vevers gets into how the company wasn't just shipping goods. Its people got, well, deeply tangled up in local societies.
Right, they had to.
Exactly. And that led to complex adaptations on both sides. Like, the company needed local know-how for trade, for administration.
Which gave local intermediaries some power.
Sometimes unexpected power, yeah. They could even challenge the company's own authority at times. It was much more sort of fluid than just one side imposing its will.
Interesting. And Claire Griffin, medicine, trade, translation in the Russian Empire, another different context. What stands out there?
Griffin's work is great because it highlights how practical things like medicine or translation became these vital bridges between cultures, or sometimes barriers.
How so with medicine?
Well, sharing medical knowledge wasn't just, here's a new cure. It meant wrestling with different ideas about the body, about illness itself.
Yeah.
We often got these fascinating hybrid practices mixing different traditions.
And translation too, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. Not just swapping words. It was about interpreting and often kind of reshaping whole ways of seeing the world.
Okay, so we've got the Andes, the oceans, the East India Company, Russia. Looking across all of these, what's the big picture takeaway? Especially, for our listeners thinking about the UPSC.
I'd say the key thing is realizing just how deeply connected the early modern world already was. Things happening in one place had knock-on effects elsewhere, often in really surprising ways.
Right.
And also remembering that history wasn't just dictated by Europe. Local people all over the globe were active players. They were shaping their own paths within these big global shifts.
That nuanced view seems critical for the UPSC.
It absolutely is, for tackling questions on globalization, international relations, the legacies of colonialism.
Mm.
You need that deeper understanding. It's not just about Europe radiating outwards.
So it's about seeing these complex, tangled histories, not just simple timelines.
Exactly. Seeing the world as a system, an interacting system, even centuries back.
So for you listening, particularly if the UPSC is on your mind, maybe think about this. These patterns from the early modern world, the unexpected influences, local agency, the role of trade, knowledge, how do they still play out today? How do they echo in the global challenges and opportunities we face right now? It's definitely something to reflect on.
It really pushes for that deeper, more critical look at the forces shaping our present.
Well, if this deep dive helped clarify things or spark some ideas for your prep, do give us a like, subscribe, and maybe drop a comment. Let us know what else you'd like us to explore.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining our deep dive today.